Hello team, welcome to this video that is going to go through the next block of training. For anyone who doesn't know, I will run through each block of training that we're going through so you guys know what to expect and how to get the most out of it. In this next block of training, we've called it Project Preseason. I always give it a name that reflects what we're trying to achieve in that block of training. The reason I've gone for Project Preseason is a couple of things. One is obviously it's the start of a new year, so it's kind of like the preseason for everything else. The second reason is that obviously Tom is joining the team and Tom will be getting heavily involved in the programming. But for the moment, we are just kind of like talking to each other about how we program and the process that we go through. So while we're kind of getting up to speed on that, I have taken care of this first block of training, which is kind of what, again, another reason why I've called it like pre-season. And the third reason is because one of the key things that we're aiming to achieve out of this block of training is athleticism. Now, for me, athleticism is basically the body being able to do things very well. So move, absorb impact, create force, get into awkward positions and be able to tolerate it. So like have resilience and robustness. And obviously in the first block of training, that's a really useful thing for us to be able to have and to improve, because that means that all of the rest of the functional training that we do, we can do it better. Obviously, two of the other things that we're always aiming to improve is our strength and, of course, our endurance. They're always in every block of training, and we usually tackle them in various different ways. Like we might focus a bit more on building muscle, we might focus a bit more on power, we might focus a bit more on maximal strength. For Project Preseason, we're actually covering all bases. We're doing a little bit of everything. So it's not to dilute anything, but it's basically means that throughout a week, you can accumulate a decent exposure to each different form and nothing is being hit too hard, which essentially helps us build this athleticism and build a solid base, a solid foundation of strength and endurance that we can build off as we go later into the year. Now, obviously, underriding all of this is the fact that we're in January. We've just had Christmas and New Year. So one of the main things that we're aiming to do is to get back into a rhythm and a flow. So this is basically like your routine, flow, routine, whatever you want to call it. And having this kind of like well-rounded daily structure and weekly structure is going to help us with that. It means we're not missing out on anything or we're overworking any particular thing. And all of this, again, something that we're just always aiming for, regardless of whether we're after body composition improvements, performance improvements, or anything else, is good health while we do it. Because health is the cornerstone of all of this. Without good health, we can't improve anything else. So athleticism, strength, and endurance all feed into that, and all hopefully feed into building a kind of good routine again after Christmas and New Year. Now, what I wanted to go over very quickly is something called supercompensation. This is basically how you get fitter and stronger. You might have come across this already, but the idea behind this is that when you train, your body has to recover from it. So you deplete your body in one form or another. But when you recover, your body recovers beyond what it could do before. And this is called supercompensation, and it's how you get fitter and stronger. At this point here, this would be ideally when we get our next training session in and we follow the same process. We deplete the body, it recovers, but it recovers beyond what it was capable of before. And we start to create this upwards trend of getting fitter and stronger. Now, frequency is important on this because if you are person Y and you train less frequently, what can happen is that you deplete, you recover, and you don't train yet. So your body actually comes back down to baseline. Now, at that point, if you train again, you'll deplete, you'll recover. But if you don't train frequently enough, you'll deplete again, you'll come back to baseline. And you can see that actually you don't really make that much progress. So the two things that we can do here to try and improve that is increase the frequency, which is coming back up to person X, where you train a little bit more often and you get results out of that. Or one of the other things that we can do is slightly increase the intensity of that training. So we deplete you further and it just takes a little bit longer to recover before you hit your next training session. You deplete, you recover. And this is relying on increasing the intensity of your training. Now, what we'll do as coaches is try and guide you through this. We know how many PT sessions you guys are signed up to do, and we have a rough idea of how many times you train per week, but it's something for you to bear in mind. My first recommendation would be to increase frequency over intensity, because when you try to train really, really hard, you can kind of like risk pushing too far. But increasing frequency is a nice, easy way of changing the supercompensation curve without that risk. Equally, if you're person Z, you might be somebody who's training really regularly. And now imagine somebody who trains twice a day, or potentially trains 7 days a week. Now, what can happen to this person is that they train, and before they've been able to fully recover, they hit their next training session. And before they've been able to fully recover from that training session, they hit their next training session. And because they're not allowing their body chance to recover, we see this downwards trend where you lose performance, you lose fitness, you lose strength. Again, the first protocol here would be to probably change the frequency. Now, what that can mean is either instead of training twice daily, you train once per day, or it might mean that if you are training, 7 days a week, that actually you take a day off. And it might mean that you have a couple of days on the bounce, but you then have 1 or 2 days off where you can recover from it before you go into your next couple of training days, and then allow yourself to fully recover from that. And you get this very gradual, but definitely improved upwards curve of progress. But frequency, I would suggest, would be the best way to alter this. And it could be as simple as taking an extra day off when you need it. It could be as much as being aware of how much you're training and then altering the intensity of that training. Because the other thing that we can do here is almost like train with less intensity, so there's less to recover from. And you can train really frequently, but get an upwards curve because your body is able to positively recover from each one of those training sessions a lot faster because it's been challenged a lot less. So just something to bear in mind, because Project Preseason is set up to cover all bases, you can use this to your advantage and in all future training to ensure that you're getting the most out of it. More isn't always better, but equally not doing enough isn't ideal either. We need to find the right frequency and the right volume of training to get you those results. Now, coming back to Project Preseason, we're going to have a nice balanced split through the week between strength and endurance. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are going to be tailored a little bit more towards strength. But you're also going to get it on the other days as well. So Tuesdays and Thursdays is going to have strength work in there, but just a bit less, just because we're tuning up the dial towards endurance on those days. Saturday is going to be about 50-50. So you can see that no matter what days you come in and how frequently you come in, you're going to get everything that you need. The block itself is going to run through sort of an initial 2 weeks that focus on sort of like sets of 7 on your strength work. And the second 2 weeks is going to move down to sort of sets of 5. And then we're going to have a transition week before we go into the next block. And then in terms of conditioning, you've got something different on each day. So on Monday, you've got some like strength conditioning, which is kind of not too demanding on the central nervous system. On a Tuesday, you've got what we call submaximal work. So this is going to be a little bit different. This is where you've got intervals with longer rest times, but you're also not trying to train super hard. The reason for this is not just for metabolic pathways, so it's not just for endurance, although it will do that. It's also for building efficiency and repeatability. So this allows you to do more over time because you're not allowing fatigue to accumulate. So that's going to be kind of something for some people to get their heads around, because the instinct is to train hard, especially if we've got a lot of rest. But this is intended to keep you in a certain level, a certain pace to improve the efficiency of your training. On Wednesday, you've got your kind of like longer continuous conditioning, which builds just your aerobic base and your muscular endurance. And then Thursday, we've got some high intensity intervals. And you can see this is the only day where you're going like hard, really hard. So you're going to be having like little short, fast intervals with plenty of rest on Thursday. Friday, you're kind of in between, where you've got you've got 2 rounds of 6 minutes. So you've got like these moderate sort of time domains that builds aerobic capacity, but also allows for some repeatability, and helps you deal with things like lactate and stuff as well. And then on Saturday, again, you've got kind of like a mix. This is going to be like an AMRAP. So this is similar to Monday, and similar to Wednesday, where you're building like aerobic base and muscular endurance. But again, all of this is to essentially say that Project Preseason is set up to really just get you into a nice flow, routine and rhythm, and build solid foundations to go off from there without it necessarily feeling just kind of like tedious, monotonous and boring. It's going to be like a really cool first block of training that's only a short one before we go into the rest of the stuff later on. So hopefully that's kind of like really interesting for you guys and something to think about and take away. You can see how you're going to get the most out of it and be able to apply yourself to get the most out of it. And hopefully you are super excited tomorrow and for next week, because I am. So I'm looking forward to seeing you guys and coaching you in 2026. Let's go get after it, team.